but because it draws me back. But there's this thing called a brain dance, and it's kind of like, it's basically VR, and someone has an implant that records their sight, their smell, all the things you can kind of record, and it's even enhanced more than what a normal person can do because it's implanted, so obviously you can get all the stuff, but you get to experience whatever the other person is. Obviously Cyberpunk's dystopia, so there's like child killing and rapes and all that terrible, but there's also like, I think there's a scene where you go on like you're a kid and you go on like this Ferris wheel or something, so it's like we can kind of imagine what it's like to be a kid, but imagine getting that full pheromone, just the rush of emotions and all the chemicals because they're doing this thing. Like, we can't do that. We can theorize it, but we can't even truly understand someone else because we don't even know the spike of happiness is 70%. That's even too statistically, but you can't feel that, right? You can imagine they're feeling happy or whatever they're feeling. It's cool where the future will take us, and we know so much now, or not. Like, it'd be cool what we can dissect of how people work once we can like literally get in their brains and really walk a mile in their shoes, or even I wonder reevaluating our own lives by taking our feet into someone else and reliving truly a moment in your life, like, oh, I totally thought that was different.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing, and how our memories change so much over time, because the more you think about, like, as you think about a memory, you're altering it.
Yeah.
So the most unaltered memory is something that you haven't remembered.
Yeah.
The point of being able to experience the memory of a child, something I find interesting about that is that children have such a limited experience in total, that the reason that a kid has a breakdown the way that you or I would had, maybe someone passes away or we see something horrible happen, a kid has a breakdown akin to that when they drop their ice cream, because that could literally be the worst thing that's ever happened to them. And the same way on that happiness spectrum, where if you experience something like love as a child, or you experience the warmth of family, that's something that it's one of the best experience. It is likely the best experience of your life, because you have such a limited window.
Yeah.
That your experiences are so volatile in happiness and sadness and those emotions, because you're expanding your perceptual window so much through those experiences. Yeah. And in that way, I'm sure neurochemicals are just flying all over the place. Like, that's what puberty is you're just up and down, up and down, up and down, because your hormones and your endocrine system is just going off the rails.
And I wonder what, like, maybe you'll know it, I wonder why are we doing that? Is it like to try and record more experiences in that or I know we're growing, so that's happening, but is it trying to, like, the body naturally is trying to turn up and down the emotions and feelings you're having, so that when something in the future happens, your brain turned on extreme sadness right now, so that when something sad happens when you're older, you can kind of compare it to that or something. That's I'm trying to explain it, but I don't know if that's coming out the way I'm thinking.
No, I think you're on the right trail there. I think that's a good way to put it, because what happens is that we don't have memories so that we can go back and experience this bliss. You can't go back and experience the same thing that you experience in a moment. The reason we have memories so that we can learn from things. So once you experience that, so it goes on both sides of the spectrum, where if you experience something horrible, that actually increases your capacity to experience horrible things in the future. And hopefully you don't top that off too often, and hopefully you don't get to that end of the spectrum all the time. But it does help us to let something horrible happen to you. So for me, it was, I can just speak from personal experience, rupturing my Achilles, and I've had a interesting life. So things happen to me and I can just totally brush it off the back. And it's this, I believe it's this epigenetic change that as we're evolving, so genes aren't born into us 100%. So we do have the capability to change our genetics as we go on through our lives. And that's epigenetic. So, what's his name? Something Huberman.
It's a common last name. Yeah.
He's a psychologist from Stanford, and he talks a lot about do you know who David Goggins is?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So it's this David Goggins' philosophy of experiencing the most painful thing you can, so that that increases your capacity to experience painful things in the future. And in
Oh,
that
this
way,
guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in that way, you're not as prone to breaking down under that load. And it's that comes back to this Jungian idea of bear bear the heaviest weight that you can without collapsing underneath it, and then
Sure.
you'll be able to bear that weight more effortlessly in the future, and even that'll make you stronger, and then
Yeah.
you'll be able to bear that weight going forward. And then on the other side of the spectrum, where it's happiness, if you experience absolute bliss and happiness, then you're more prone to seek those things out in the future. So we get in a little bit of trouble there as humans because we really
Sure.
enjoy to seek that out, and maybe through more unnatural means, natural being also relative, because like a drug can be natural,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we seek it out over and over and over again because it hits this dopamine release, and that's when we become addicts. But
Yeah.
on a base level, our neural circuitry was developed so that we can continuously seek out that happiness, because that should mean that we're doing something right.
Hmm.